Welcome to B-Flow Sessions, the podcast where we help you find and stay in the flow on the water and in life. I'm your host, Brad Burton. Join me as I sit down with paddlers, athletes, and adventurers who are all seeking the flow. B-Flow Sessions is brought to you by our friends at Pucon Kayak Retreat. Are you dreaming of a Chilean whitewater escape this winter? Picture turquoise rapids, warm sunny days, and world-class rivers for every skill level, all based out of a riverside retreat built by paddlers for paddlers. If that sounds like your kind of winter, then Pucon Kayak Retreat is the place. To learn more or to book your dream kayak trip, reach out to me directly at bflowkayak@gmail.com and I'll help you get connected. B-Flow Sessions is powered by Dagger Kayaks. Wherever there's water, Dagger Kayaks will help you find your flow. Team-tested, paddler-proven designs for all paddlers and all water. And thanks to our partners at Sawyer Paddles, Stohlquist PFDs, and Level 6 Gear for keeping us in the flow. Welcome to the next episode of B-Flow Sessions. And today I am joined by somebody that I've researched about. I'm sitting here talking to him off air, and more I find out about him. It's like, man, him and I are like kindred spirits. This guy is a professional kayaker. He's one of the top kayak instructors in the world right now. He's competed in kayaking. He's ran big waterfalls. He's surfed big waves. He's also, like me, a school teacher. He's a former school teacher. I'm currently a school teacher. So we just have tons in common. And it's somebody that I don't know if we've ever paddled together, but I want to paddle with him sometime in the future. But just somebody I'm really stoked to have on the podcast, and that's Boyd Ruppelt. Boyd, welcome to B-Flow Sessions.
Thank you so much. You know, while you were giving me that intro, I noticed, and the people listening won't see this, but I can see it. You have two pictures of the Akoi and Nantahala behind you. I have the exact same ones in my hallway right now.
I mean, the levels of like connection. Every time you mention something, like we find all these things that make us connected here. So, and actually, people will be able to see it if they watch on Spotify. And this is also on YouTube, so they'll be able to see it there as well. So,
I have the exact same ones in the flipped order in my hallway, right as you walk in the house. It's so great.
I used to have them on a different wall with a Silver Creek paddle, and I've just kind of rearranged some things, mostly so I can get into a comfortable chair and not sit on my couch and hurt my back.
No doubt. Well, they're from that age. They're from those days. Which is
That's right. Yeah. The golden era, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think so for sure. Well, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So again, Boyd is a professional kayaker, and if people want to know a little bit more about his story, I highly recommend they go out to Paddling Magazine and see an article that he wrote called Going Pro at 35. I quit being a pro kayaker at 25, and Boyd became a one at 35, but he was kayaking long before that, and we're going to hear a lot more about that story. Maybe coming up right now. Boyd, how did you find your flow in kayaking?
Oh my gosh, man. Well, I didn't actually pick that title, Going Pro at 35, but it is catchy, isn't it?
It is.
I really, kayaking for me was almost a means to an end when I was a little kid. For me, I was obsessed with water. Actually, I lived in Florida for a short bit, and had we stayed, I would have just gone after surfing. It would have been just surfing. But living in this little town, Memphis, Tennessee, I call it a little town, it's a city, ways away from the ocean, that just wasn't available. And then somehow I got into whitewater kayaking at 8 years old. From there, I don't even know how I did it. But my parents were originally, they just said, no, it's too dangerous, you can't do it. And then finally they said, okay, if you're serious, after I tried it out and, with a friend at my dad's office, who was a canoeer, they said, okay, if you're really serious about this, you have to earn your own kayak. And they paid me minimum wage, and I did yard work and moved brush piles as a little 8-year-old boy to save up for my first kayak. I worked all summer, bought my first kayak. And honestly, I was hooked ever since. but it was always the water. Like it was
Hmm.
always, it was always about the water. I always wanted to just be one with it. There was always something in that for me. I was terrified while I was learning how to kayak. I was a scared little beginner, and I was cold. I didn't know how to stay warm, and didn't have a lot of the comforts that we kind of like manufacture for beginners now, ideally, right? Like
Right.
good dry suits and things like that. We just didn't know better, and so it had to be something I was serious about and that I really wanted to do. And once I could kayak, I just remember everything felt good when I was there, and that just stuck. It was
Hmm.
no matter what happened, no matter where I was, no matter what was going on in life, everything was good if I could kayak.
And what was
And
that first boat you bought? Are they?
it was an Epitike EPI 1000, which is this little. It had to have been like the first kid's kayak or something. It looked like long pointed, just like all the glass kayaks a lot of other people paddled at the time. The
Hmm.
dancer was really popular at the time. A lot of people had dancers. There were a couple of guys, I think, in some of Corin's Savage designs back then that were starting to kind of way ahead of their time, right? They were
Sure.
kind of like around, but it seemed like um, it seemed like that was more of the crowd. And I got in that little thing, and this guy Lanier Fogg, he was just this old. He was an old guy at the time, but I think he was a legend in his day. I don't know. Like it
Mm.
sounded like he was. But he took the time to teach me in the pool, and it took me forever to learn how to roll. It just took forever for some reason. It seemed like roll practices, and but once I had it, I remember just being absolutely hooked all the time
Yeah.
and so excited. Like it was amazing. It was I would just flip, 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 and then roll the other way and roll the other way, and then I was excited when I could roll so hard I flipped on the other side again, window shade myself.
Yeah.
And those little boats you easily could, right? So
Let's eddy out and take a quick break. Do you need a break from the cold of a North American winter? Then let's head south to the best whitewater on earth at Pucon Kayak Retreat. Email me at bflowkayak@gmail.com to learn more about how you can take the ultimate paddling adventure in the heart of Chile. Now let's peel out and head downstream.
Yeah. So
uh,
you mentioned the guy that taught you how to roll. Who were some other flow guides, mentors in your life along the way?
I learned in this club that had it had one boater that, and we didn't get along. We were around the same age. We were in different kind of like parts of the same club, but learning together was Matt Sheridan. And so it was a lot of people remember him. And so we were actually kind of like learned in parallel. He was a little bit older, a little bit ahead. The group that taught me was really conservative. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I don't know. Even now, I'm kind of like unsure if I'm a little too conservative sometimes, or a little bit too, you know, I don't know. Some people think I'm Cindy sometimes, and it's not really like how I'm described most of the time. But it was back then when I was that young. I think it kept me safe.
Exactly.
But at the same time, I remember seeing the Cascades for the first time as a little kid, thinking, "Oh, that's fine."
Really?
And everybody was like, "No, it's not." It's like, "Yeah, it's fine." And then, finally, when I was like 15, we ran them at night in playboats. That was my first time on the Cascades, and it was great.
And about what year was that?
Oh my gosh, that would have probably been early 2000s. I bet it
Okay.
would have.
Okay.
Well, no, it would have been 90s still probably. What was that? I was born in '84,
Okay.
so
So you're a few
99.
years younger than me then.
It was
Okay.
probably
Yeah.
98 or 99. It was probably like one of those.
Okay. So I was at the NOC then, so I'm sure our paths crossed.
But for sure, at Gaff back in the old days, the glory days of Gaff.
Yeah.
A
And
big
you could
part of
go
the
for
reason
$500. You could walk away with a full setup.
you could, yeah, it was wild. It was wild. It was such a different time. The Halloween gaff with all the kayaking parties and
Yeah,
releases. It was fun. It was a good
it
time.
was. So I want to know more about this, like your kind of the trajectory of your life. Kind of take us through some of the things that you talk about in that article of turning pro at 35. I mean, it really looked like you were just pouring yourself out, with a lot of self-reflection in that article. Take us through some of that arc.
Yeah, that article was one that's pretty near and dear to my heart. I ended up actually, you know, turning that into a book that I'm working on getting out there one day. But it was one of these things where, when I was a kid, my dream was to be a kayaker. Like if you asked me when I was a little kid, what are you going to be when you grow up? I might have said doctor, but I would have said kayaker. It was like all the time. It was like kayaker, kayaker, kayaker. By the time I was in college, I was fully sponsored. I was on Team Stohlquist and Team Ballistic, and then, and really at 16, I was fully sponsored. But in college, I was like pro level team and traveling around and filming. Um, it was even like it was after filming like Hotel Charlie, River of Doubt with Ben Stokesbury, and we were down. I was writing a paper on an airplane, trying to get back to class, and then run it in to turn it in. It was it was just a different time, and it was one of those times where I think for me I was finally one of the most recognized kayakers. I think in kayaking at the time I had billboards. I was in every magazine. I was all over the place. Media incentives were stacked up. We were all planning trips. I was an outdoor retailer every year. And then right at that kind of moment where I think where I was about to take my kayaking career to the next level, and I'd switched to Jackson Kayak, and I was paddling for Jackson Kayak, and this is probably 2006 maybe or so, 2007. And then I just hit this moment, and it really shocked everybody. I think it shocked Clay anyway, where I had to get a day job. It was like, while I was outdoor retailer, I think it was that year, National Geographic asked me to be a TV host at
Mm.
Outdoor Retailer. They were like, "Yeah, come work for us, be a national TV host." I'd partied with the headhunters all night, and we had gone to from party to party. I had no idea who they were, and they decided I would be perfect for it, and I turned it down. And it was one of those crazy things where you know I had that option to do more and to build this huge kayaking career and for it to be great. But there was this urgency that I had. My girlfriend at the time had a tremendous amount of medical debt just thrust on her out of nowhere, and I I really just felt like the only way through, like if I stayed with kayaking, I could support me, but it didn't seem like I could also support her and handle that debt. It seemed like I had to grow up. So really, like it was kind of a sore moment when I had to give all of that up. It was something that I kept sponsors. I tried to do both. I tried to be a teacher and a pro kayaker. I tried to keep all my sponsors. I stayed on Team Jackson Kayak the whole time. But I went down to the regional team. I was on the factory team, and then I went down to the regional team.
Sure.
And it was one of those things where suddenly I was a weekend warrior. I was
Right.
at a day job the whole time, and it was kind of like I didn't quite have that chance to like fully give myself to the sport. So when I got divorced later, and and I was devastated. I lost everything. All in the same time. I thought I was going to lose both my parents. My mom had breast
Mm.
cancer. My dad was in heart failure. I was, you know, trying to cling to my career, but I was going to have to sell my house, and I was getting a divorce. And it was all connected, and it was just one of those times where there was nothing I could do but lean in. Right? I guess I could have held on and just gone crazy, but something happened, and I just realized I had an opportunity. I was like, you know what, I can go do whatever I want.
This is
So
this is so I mean, sometimes we hear stories or we see things, we have a hard time finding the right adjective for it. So I'm just like awe-inspiring, but also, just unbelievable and amazing that you're the the arc here. I mean, it's just, I mean, you couldn't write it, but it's again, it's so similar to mine. Now, I didn't have like my wife and I are still married, happily married, and hopefully
That's
continue to
good,
be for
man.
many, many years.
Exactly.
Yeah, but similar thing, like she has a ton of medical issues, and it's like, and I think what I read, and I kind of hear you saying I read this in the article is you desired whether you wanted to or not or realized it or not a level of comfort.
Yeah, it's true.
It's like you can only eat ramen and sleep in the back of the truck so many times, and it's
That is
like,
so true.
oh, a teaching salary, probably was back then was like $40,000. Like this was like hitting the lottery. I was
Yeah.
like, I can afford a house with a bed and a recliner like that, and so I kind of the same things.
It's
But
nice to have a home to come home to, like my first step, what I did was I sold the house and I stepped out and I started dating my current wife once I filed for divorce. And I didn't mean to meet anybody great, but I did. But then I was divorced, homeless, and unemployed. I just was a guy with a kayak, and on our first date, I remember just sitting down and being like, I'd leave the country soon and I'm going to be gone at least a year. Like, I don't know what this is going to look like, but I'm going to be gone, and obviously it worked out. We're married now, but it was such a wild thing, right? Like, went off into to the Zambezi and just like spent a month there and just gave myself to the Zambezi and just, whatever I could do, just did it there. And, I it was in Chile with David after that. And, that was a full season, and it was a hard season too. It was a really hard season. And so it kind of, those comforts we're talking about, I didn't have them there. And
right,
then when COVID hit, all of a sudden I was like, I can't travel. I have nowhere to go.
mm,
You know, I ended up staying with, now my wife, my girlfriend at the time. She had her house, and I was like, all right, well, if you're okay with it, maybe this won't last long. But we ended up really liking it. It ended up being great. So
there was a lot of parts of COVID that I liked. Obviously,
yeah,
the people who lost their lives and things, you don't wish that on anybody. But that I wish the world almost like every 5 years, without the death, could just like shut down for like a
I think
month.
I think what was really good that a lot of people sometimes forget is that for a little while, everybody kind of reunified on
Hmm.
bad TV, family time,
Yeah,
working from home. Like everybody, like it was hard. It wasn't great. Wasn't Didn't like the pandemic. Didn't like all the litter from it. Didn't like the craziness and the silliness.
right.
But man, if we didn't all watch Tiger King at some point, it was like,
I didn't watch Tiger King, but I watched a lot of other silly TV for sure.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh, man, I ran out and I was like, I had COVID and I was like, okay, I might as well. And it was one of those things where I feel like there was so much there was so much like quietness in society because of that. It was forced, quietness, and I think there was some, and that wasn't all it was, obviously, but I do think that some of that was good for us.
I think
I
so
think
too.
a lot of modern bosses and don't like that. I went back into teaching during COVID, by the way. Like it was,
Okay.
I didn't want to go back. It was like awful. I really didn't want to do it, but I'd already had COVID and I couldn't go anywhere and I had to earn money. So I was like, well,
Right.
I
Yeah.
guess I'm going to teach again for 2 years.
So was that about a 10-year stretch then from where were kind of at the top of your game and kind of walked away from it to getting back to the Zambezi and rediscovering that lifestyle?
Yeah, it was probably about a 10-year stretch. It was, I taught for about 10 years total. So it might have been 8 years, 9 years, but
But during that time, you continued to kayak, just not at the level that you were or the level you're at now.
yeah, I was just at dam releases or I would creek and I would just try to, make it count like everybody. Like,
Sure.
had a good strong local crew that I would paddle with and still paddle with Clay or EJ or whoever was in town. And but it was kind of low key. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
it was. I did a lot of different things, but yeah,
Yeah,
it
see,
was.
my hiatus was 20 years, and during that 20 years, I probably paddled 15 times.
See, that's a proper hiatus. That's a big like.
But that's too long, and
That's too. That is
especially
hard.
trying to come back into the sport at 47, but 20
Yeah,
years
that's
off.
really hard. Yeah, I was still around. I was still kind of doing stuff, and I did the green race as a teacher. It was a terrible idea. I couldn't train for it. I couldn't, and where I lived, I'd always have to drive a really long way to
Sure.
go to get there. So I would drive the night before and show up the morning of, and not even see the river the day of, and then talk about setting yourself up for success.
Just
you
send
know I'd be tired from
it.
parent conferences, and yeah, it was
Right.
awful. One year I went with a concussion and a stapled head, and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it was just not. I never gave myself a chance to be successful. I think that was the part that really drove me crazy. you know Internally anyway, it was like I felt like I was always sort of trying. I would
Right.
try all the way when I was there, but I never felt like I could really. You have to kind of devote yourself to kayaking if you're going to do it right,
Yeah.
like at that level.
If you're, yeah, if you're going to be at that level, yes. I mean, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who can enjoy it just when they get on the water.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I like that, but I think that sort of devotion to kayaking is one that you know, it's great that people can do that, but like you said, I like the comfort of having a home. I like having a wife and a house and a dog and, a couch to crash on, and you know,
Yeah.
it's like there's some creature comforts that are really nice to have. I've been out of the country probably 6 months a year for the last, couple of years, and so I'm not here a lot, but when I am here, I feel like it's
When I would go out of the country or on the freestyle tour, like in RV, one thing that I would miss my house or whatever house I was staying in. Sometimes it was just a room in a house, but I would miss my car because it was like I've been driving this RV or driving a Dave Hughes's Huge Experience bus or living in Chile driving vans to the river. It's like, oh, to get into a little Subaru again and be able to zip around and not worry about like backing up a trailer or an RV. Oh, thank gosh.
there's something really great about it. Although I do kind of miss the manual Hilux of Chile.
Oh, for
It,
sure.
getting a bunch of Hiluxes, and I love that truck. If I could have one here, that's what I have a Tacoma. If I could have a Hilux here, a manual Hilux, I
For
would be
sure.
all about that. They drive so good.
Yeah, that's the best truck for kayaking for sure.
I don't miss the trailer.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
it's one of those things.
Well, for this next
But
question, you've had a lot of for the next two. Anytime somebody's kayaked as extensively and for as many years as you had, and the number of places, you're going to get both a perfect flow and what I call flood. So let's start with perfect flow. Tell me about some times when everything was just perfect on the river.
oh my gosh, I think my favorite river in the world I found in Chile was the Fui. The Fui is just like, and I hear this a lot from people who go down there and who experience that river. There's something spectacular about having a river with emerald clear water that kind of like comes out of a lake warm
Hmm.
and goes off a series of waterfalls
Right.
and then goes into this tight glacier gorge with a mandatory 50 footer, and then exits through a bunch of like class class 6 waterfalls that might be runnable, and one that it is runnable that's over 100 feet, and I guess it goes through those before that narrow gorge, and then you've got this perfect boulder garden section that's like class 3 4 after that, where you can just like
Right.
route and boof everything in sight with no consequence, and it just gets gradually easier. So and then it's got freestyle spots and play spots, and I don't know, man. Like I've never seen a river with that kind of variety, friendliness,
Mm.
push, flow. So when you're there, you're just this last recent trip, for example, we had a day on it where I was able to just paddle full speed into every booth, and I tried to hit. I'm not kidding, every single booth I could find, and I was sprinting from one to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next, and it was like paddling ADHD. And I would fly off of one, and I would hit the next one and land almost inverted, and then like bring my
Mm,
bow down, and then route for the
wow.
next one. And there was never more than just a couple of strokes between booths, and they were big booths. These were not like little rocks I was just touching. This was just
Right.
like big reeling lean booths off of things.
Mm,
I think that's the most perfect flow for me that I tend to find is like you give me a Boulder Garden section of really hard moves if you want them, but really easy, fun moves if you just want those,
sure.
and just don't have to think. I mean, that's to me that is
Yeah.
just like epic. It's like quickly turned into my favorite river in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, so anytime I'm down in Chile, that's top of my list if I can is get there, and the waterfalls are just perfect, beautiful,
Sure.
perfect on waterfalls. Actually, the waterfall from that article you mentioned that was on the or no, it was on a different article. There's another article that I did that had a great
Okay.
photo by Eli was from the Fui.
Okay.
That river is just favorite river in the world, no doubt.
Yeah. A lot of magical rivers in Chile. The way you feel about the Fui is the way I feel about the Fuda.
Yeah, I could see that. I love Fuda too.
Yeah. And it didn't have the
Especially with the
waterfalls,
nice
obviously,
waves.
but
And yeah, and that's the only reason the Fui kind of like knocked it out for me a little bit. I love the Fuda, and that gorge is just spectacular. And I think everybody should just make a pilgrimage there at some point. It's
absolutely.
just incredible.
Yeah, it's paradise on earth. Oh, if the Fuda comes up a lot, and I keep neglecting to ask people that have been there, and people, of course, sending things at such a higher level than whenever I was in the game. Did you ever hike up and see the cascadas of the Espolon?
No, I don't think that I did. There's a section in there that pours into the Fui, and I don't know if this is what you're talking about. I'm not sure 100% which one you're
No,
talking
so the
about.
Espolon flows into the Fuda, like right at the town.
Yeah, I said Fui, I meant Fuda. And it's at the
Okay,
town. There's a section with some waterfalls that I know is run now.
well, they have been
That
run. Okay,
that is like, and I don't know if this is the section you're talking about, but it's a section full of waterfalls that's
yes,
compared to Nevados. It's like the Rio Nevado, but pours into Fuda, and I
comes
think
out of
that
a
has the
lake and
same.
it just like falls off the side of a mountain, and then it has a like class two run into the Fuda. We would hike up there and look at it, and we were like, I see some lines, but I also
I
see some places I don't want to be.
I think that's been run. I think that's been run
Okay,
now. I think it might be consistently run now, but I might be
okay,
thinking about a different one. There's one up there that I know matches that description that is run, and
yeah.
I
So
have
it's
not
like
done it. I
the
want to.
lake, and I can't remember the name of the lake, but it just like flows right out of the lake, and it just drops and drops and drops through this tight slot canyon, and it has a great hiking trail where you can go up and see all those cascades. And I just was like, man, somebody's gonna run this one day, but not gonna be me.
It's amazing what gets run now.
It
It's
is,
very. It has to be very marginal and out of the way, and you know, really marginal on a lot of different levels to have not been run at this point.
sure.
You know,
Yeah, if you're gonna find
so
first ascents, it's probably because you're finding some place that's so remote that people haven't found yet.
yeah, there's a part of me that's happy that first descents aren't my primary motivation because
Hmm.
you have to work way harder now than ever before. I feel like to
Sure.
find these first descents. They're there, but goodness, but I think that section's been run. I
Okay.
I would love to get
I
back
want to
down
look
there and
that
see
up.
it. Yeah, you should
If
definitely
you
look
think
that
about
up.
who's ran it, or if you find like footage of it, send it to me. I
I'll
would love
look.
to see that.
It would have to be probably the Astorga crew, I would
Okay.
imagine. So, um, but I can find out for sure if I see
And
video
I'm
of it.
sure as much as Annual spends down there, I'm sure he's ready
Yeah, if it's something that's being run, I bet he's done it
for
for
sure.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah, if it could be done, he could probably find a way down it.
Yeah, He's there a lot, so
Right.
I bet he's already looked at it at least.
Yeah. Now, when I mentioned flood, this is the times when things maybe not, didn't go so well. And you mentioned, and like I sent out a form to my guests, and you mentioned there's three things I can think of that kayakers definitely don't want to ever have happen. And I'm going to go in order of severity: separated
Yeah,
shoulder, um, some sort of like neck or spinal injury, and drowning.
yeah,
So you've had two of those three. Have you ever had a separated shoulder?
yeah. I've had all three.
Okay, so you've had
Yeah,
all three of these. And
yeah.
so, if you don't mind, talk to us about some of these just really, really scary situations.
Well, I'll tell you the shoulder incident was a waterfall, and it was a I think it was an exhaustion injury. I don't know. Like it was one of these weird times where I kind of caught a weird bounce near a lip, a shallow lip, mid stroke that just kind of like it was like a subluxation that led to a dislocation. It was a tree branch that kind of was in the way that kind of
Mm.
it was just like a weird it was a weird freak accident in Colorado. And we've been lapping it over and over and over all day. And I actually just went up to do another lap, one last lap after being done for this little kid on a four wheeler. He was on a four wheeler with his dad, and they were real excited about it. And the kid really wanted to see a kayaker run it. And so I was like, all right, I'll go again. And then, dislocated my shoulder and then, you know, put it back in. It was the last day of the trip, of course, right? So it was one of those
Yeah.
things where last day of the trip, I'm walking around with a sling and ended up having three screws put in that shoulder. And
It's better than the first day of the trip, though.
yeah, man, it was a great trip. It was a great trip. Yeah, and luckily, it was the last drop, the last moment, the last day. I feel like when people get hurt, it's almost always the last day.
Right.
Same for
Fatigue
guiding. When
and
I'm guiding people, this year in Chile, for example, like we had a couple of ER visits for, mostly guys helmets who didn't fit super well. Like
mm,
people choose these helmets, and they get these little gashes or whatever and just need some stitches. And we take them into the ER and it's, free if it's a head injury down there. They treat it really well. They're good doctors. But like, it was always the last day. It was always the last day of the trip. That was, I don't know.
yeah.
There's like a last day curse. But um, for me, like, and drowning was one of those things where it was awful. It was cold and icy, and there was snow on the ground. It was not my best moment in kayaking for sure. But the neck injury was worse, man. Number two, like you listed them in order of severity. Like for me, the neck injury was the most terrifying out of everything. Like that was the
Mm,
one that was the absolute worst. And I'm lucky that it wasn't worse. I'm lucky that it wasn't a big deal. I was joy lapping the green alone on a solo lap,
mm,
and it was just like, I was just kind of like routing through early. It was before the race, and so I paddled in to watch and hang out with some friends. And I was like, I'm not forcing the race this year. I couldn't train. I'm tired of like going into things not training for it. And I took a weird bounce in rapid transit.
mm,
I've never thought about that rapid. It's not even been something on my mind since like high
right.
school.
Yeah.
And I just caught a weird bounce and kind of got slammed. Everybody was getting slammed, and I braced off with my paddle a little bit and thought I was in the clear. And I was like coming up, and the shelf, not the shelf at the bottom, but a shelf up on the wall,
Hmm.
that kind of protrudes off the wall a little bit before
Yeah.
you get to where, before you get to the flat shelf that bounces you left. It
Yeah.
was just before that, this shelf on the wall snagged my helmet and snapped my neck.
Oh.
And and so it was like someone coming up behind you and just like snapping your neck. And it was the way that the rock caught the edge of my helmet. And you can see like on the old helmet where the paint was chipped off and it just grabbed
Hmm.
and it just snapped my neck in a way that thrust my disc out.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I skipped out of the bottom in horrible pain. and then had some temporary paralysis on the beach, and I was alone. There was nobody around,
Oh,
and it was. I kind of like leaned over and like tried to. It was just getting worse. My legs went
mm,
out, my arms went out, and then I tried to just kind of like do some chin tucks just in case. I was like, it's got to be my disc because I'd injured my neck skydiving before, so I have some disc issues in my neck already. Um, Kind of, it all came back, and I was like, okay, it's my disc. I I can walk. I was scared it was gonna go out again, so I kind of like carefully watched the race, carefully paddled out ahead of everybody, paddled down, went to the ER, got checked out, and found you just wanted to make sure it wasn't broken. It was like, let's just make sure that like it's not broken. They're like, you have some significant like they just did an X-ray and a CT scan, and they said you definitely have some herniated disc, and you really need an MRI. And I was like, that's good. I'll wear the brace and I'll go home. And
mm.
it was like I knew I had some disc issues, so I didn't take it super seriously, even though it hurt really badly. It was not great. And man, I woke up paralyzed from the neck down.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it was a
Oh,
moment that I will never forget. It felt like I woke up and it felt like a wave, and it I felt the disc punch my spinal cord. I felt the movement, and everything shut down and shut off, and I
oh
couldn't
my God.
move anything. And I think the part that nobody thinks about, and this is the part that terrified me the most, I couldn't feel my own breathing. Couldn't
Mm.
feel my own heartbeat. Couldn't feel my own breathing. It was everything from the neck down was just quiet.
Oh
And I
my
think that was the part that was the most terrifying was that there was no I couldn't feel the control of my own breath. I couldn't
God. Mm.
feel the it man, it was just weird. And it was thankfully temporary. And
Sure.
went through some rehab, some physical therapy, and um, luckily, man, I got the best prognosis anybody in my situation could get, and that is that I had bruised my spinal cord, but everything went back, healed properly, and
Oh,
I'm not at risk of it happening again, or I'm not at more risk of it happening again than I
sure.
would have been before it happened.
Okay. Wow. And how long ago was that?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was before the flood. It was probably 2 years, maybe 3 years ago. 2 years ago, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, and so the moment I was like somewhat cleared, I went down for a season in Chile, and then I just got back from a season in Chile, so 2.5 years.
Okay. Wow. Well, I'm
Yeah,
glad you're doing
yeah,
well with it and able to.
thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So to me, like the drowning one, like wasn't great, but there was a lot less residual like
Sure.
fear and issues compared to paralysis. Like to me, paralysis was like,
Right. Yeah. If you get resuscitated from drowning, you're usually pretty good. Like once you kind of recover. I mean, you gotta get to the
yeah.
resuscitation part for drowning to be okay. But do you mind sharing that story?
It was a rough one, man. I was just in a playboat on a creek, and everything was high, and everything was frozen, and I got mystery moved into a terminal hole,
Mm.
and I tried everything to get out. I tried everything. Honestly, it was like I had squished my. You remember we squished boats? I had
Mm-hmm.
taken it and turned it into a plastic squirt boat.
Mm.
And so I'd taken like an old dominatrix 41 that I was too big for anyway, and I squished out the extra volume and turned it into this like ultra slicey squirt boat that I could mystery move. And we were creaking in that. Um, and I popped up under an undercut at one point and thought it was funny. And then we were still like paddled out, and like I stayed in my boat. I worked it all out and just kind of like walked my way, and then popped up. And I guess we were just really on a tear. It was high school. I was, I think, 18, and
What creek was this?
it was uncanny for it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was. it was really a rough one, man. That was one where, and I don't want to go into too many details about it, just because, like, I mean, it's just a lot. But like
Oh,
they
sure. You don't have to.
they got me set, and it was getting dark, and I mean, they just had to put me back in my kayak and like coax me downstream. I was like frozen and scared, and like, I mean, like literally frozen. I had like ice on me and everything. I severely hypothermic, and they kind of like, and then we had to do the hike out at the end, and there was like snow on the ground, and we had to hike the whole road because back then the road wasn't something you drove.
Wow.
And yeah, it was a whole thing, man. It was one of those things where I was I was honestly scared as a kid. I was scared I was gonna just drown again.
Right.
I just
Well,
I
talk
was
about
scared
the
to go sleep at night.
resiliency.
But
Yeah, I mean, the resiliency you had to have to get back in a boat. I mean, some people they swim and they're like, this isn't for me. I'm not doing this again. You've had several of these mishaps that you've
yeah,
not only walked away from, but come back to the sport even stronger.
I think I think that's the big thing about kayaking that really gets people is that I think a lot of times when you're a beginner, you come into kayaking, when you make a mistake, you can't breathe, right? Like that's your intro to the sport is you flip, and it's gonna happen. And when that happens, you can't breathe until you're out of your kayak or you roll, right? Like those are the two things that can happen. Like a friend can roll for you, do like a hand of God or whatever, but you can't breathe. And then the other thing is that you come into the sport and you're automatically going to be cold. It
Hmm.
kind of River water is inherently cold. It's
Right.
pretty rare that we get to paddle warm rivers. It's a lot of times the weather's bad. So
Hmm.
either unless you're in snowmelt, the which is really cold,
Right.
you're probably paddling rainwater because the weather's been bad. And a lot of times that means the trees aren't sucking the water up, so then it's cold and there's snow or ice or whatever. And I think a lot of times, and dam releases help with that. You can make it a little more comfortable as a beginner. But I think that one of the biggest barriers to entry to kayaking is that kind of discomfort. And
Sure.
I kind of joke with people when I'm instructing that swims never stop; they just get more violent.
Hmm.
It's kind of like
Yeah.
they get farther apart. It's like you save it all up, and then you get it out of the way with a horrible swim, one that you just
Yeah.
don't want. And I think that's part of it. But what gets me through it, and I think this is what's important for anyone learning to kayak, is you have to know why you're doing it.
Hmm.
I think that's really what it is, right? Like if you know what it gives you, if you
Hmm.
know what you care about, if you know why you kayak, then you're going to be a lot less, turned off when things go wrong. You're going to just come back
Sure.
again and again and again because then you can decide whether or not it's worth it. And I think
Right.
when people swim and they're like, I'm done, I'm never doing it again, I think there is an element of, yeah, it's scary and it's uncomfortable and that can happen that people don't want to deal with. But I think that it signals to me anyway, and I'm sure there's some bias in it, but it kind of signals to me, well, either they don't know what they get out of kayaking or they just don't get as much out of kayaking as I do.
Hmm. Right.
Right? Like those are the two options. And for those of us that I think stick with it, we don't want those things to happen to us, but being around a drowning or near a drowning or drowning, and I've had all of them happen, it's just like a rite of passage. It's like something that's going to happen as somebody near you is going to drown. You're going to see it. You're going to participate in that rescue or that
Right.
recovery, or somebody does. And I think that's just part of the sport. It's not a part of the sport any of us like, but I think it is a reality of what we do,
Sure.
especially if you're into creeking or pushing yourself in any way in a kayak, right? Like
Right.
if you want to make kayaking super safe, you can try to stay on class 3, but that's where most of the drownings occur.
That's exactly right. What I was thinking. Yeah.
It's like that's where so the truth is, like, I don't think anybody's immune. And so I think the best thing to do for the resilience is to understand clearly what you get out of it.
I
You know,
like
and
that.
if you know what you
Yeah,
get out of it, then you can always come back.
I love it.
And yeah, that's what it is for me.
Well, now I want to talk about the current, and I want you to talk about, what you do as an instructor and, with your company and leading trips in Chile and in Canada. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I was coming back into the sport and I was really devoting myself back to kayaking again, I had a moment during that COVID lockdown where now my wife, Catherine, she just said, I want to learn how to kayak. And I had actually broken my hip. I don't know how many people got COVID injuries, but I was definitely one of them. I took up a COVID hobby, like most people seem to take up something as a COVID hobby. I got
Hmm.
back into skateboarding. And
Okay.
so at Old Man Hour at the skate park, I got kicked off the coping into a bowl and cracked my hip. It was kind of a moment. So kayaking with a cracked hip was not a super fun experience. She was wanting to learn how to kayak, and I was looking for ways to teach her. And so we were looking at videos. I didn't feel like there was a lot out there. Like I felt like there was a lot out there, but I didn't really like all of any of it. If that makes
Hmm.
sense, like I liked some of it, some of everything, maybe, or I'd find a clip that I really liked some parts of it, but I didn't always like how it was shown or how it was done, and I just wanted to give her something to go off of, and then once I was well, I just decided to put all of that out there. It was a labor of love. It was like, all right, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to share this information. I think I can teach a bunch of people online better than I can teach one or two at a time in person.
Mm. Yeah.
And let's just like leave something for other people. And that was why I started my channel. That was the whole purpose behind it. And it kind of just grew. It grew in a way that I didn't it grew in a way that I wanted it to grow, but not necessarily in the way that I expected it to grow, if that makes sense. It was I didn't I didn't know it was going to be turn out as successful as it has been, or open some of the doors that it has, or anything like that. And it was really just my way of giving back. Still is. I still like just giving back.
That's kind of my thought process with
But
this
over
podcast.
time, yeah, that's how it goes, right? Is there's a
Yeah.
way, like a lot of us who have been in the sport for any length of time have a perspective that we want to share and leave for people who are newer in the sport. And I think it's a way to kind of get that out there and be heard, but also it's a way to give back, right?
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
so being able to give back to everybody was important to me. And so that turned into signature weeks and people reaching out for instruction. And initially, I actually got emails from some of the instructors in the southeast, like, "Hey, you can't instruct on the Akoi." And I wasn't
Yep.
instructing on the Akoi or the Nantahala. I was like, "But I'm not. I saw you instructing those. Like, I was teaching my girlfriend." Like, guys, this is not paid instruction. Like,
Right.
I'm allowed to teach the people I love how to paddle. Like,
Right.
this is ridiculous. And I remember just taking a hard stance against doing instruction anyway. And part of it was like, you instruct for an hour, you get paid a certain amount, right? But living in Nashville, I have to drive a long ways both ways, and so then it's really expensive, and I lose a whole day to it. So for every hour of instruction that I do on one of those rivers, I've lost an entire day at least anyway, right? So it's no matter what, it's full day instruction. So rather than deal with it, I was like, hey, I'll send you guys the clients. I'll send them to you. I'm going to keep working on my channel. But if you see me instructing
Okay.
my wife, leave me alone.
Right.
Or my sister-in-law, like, leave me alone.
Yeah.
And so we kind of all had an understanding. And it was kind of a funny thing. Well, anyway, then I got a call from a friend of mine who's, Casey and I go way back. And we've known each other since high school. And he he's in charge of Ottawa Kayak School, and he's probably part owner of Wilderness Tours by now. And he definitely married into the family that owns it. And so
Okay.
he's like, hey, come do signature weeks. You've got a following, you can do this. And so I thought about it, and I was like, okay, I'll do signature weeks. And then more reached out, right? That went well. And then people are like, hey, come do signature weeks. I got requests in Ecuador. I got requests in Europe. I've got requests all over the place.
Wow.
And, I ended up that one first year out, I started working for David. And
Hmm.
he's like, hey, you should bring people down and just, book clients. And, you've had the talk. And so, that's, I was like, all right, you know,
Yeah.
we'll try
Great.
this out. We'll see how this goes. But it kind of just grew into something that, is actually pretty sustainable. Like it is actually
Sure.
something that works really well. And it's surprising. It's different than I thought. It's a
Hmm.
different route. And the weirdest route, I think the weirdest thing about the line that I've chosen is that, it's hard to build up a following in kayaking in any way other than posting constant content,
Right.
right? Like content is king. And so for people posting lots of clips, I don't look down on the guys that are out there running big stuff and just posting a clip and moving on.
Hmm.
But there's something intrinsic and there's something that's in me that I don't feel as connected to the idea of like sending a drop, posting a stamp and moving on.
Right.
Like I kind of want the drops to mean more. I'm willing to go that big. I'm willing to go really big. I just don't want to do it all the time and feel like I just have to post it and move on and forget about it.
Hmm.
And then at the same time, there's this, you know, the there's that urge and that need to kind of give back, right? Like I
Sure.
really care about that.
Right.
And so from what I've built, and people seem to really like it. But then this crazy thing happened, and people started recognizing me, and it kind of reminded me from when I was like a pro kayaker the first time before I gave it up. I had reached this like pro kayaker status, and people knew who I was, but it was different. They were like, "Hey, I saw you on a river," or "Hey, I saw you here, and it was really cool," or "We were at this event, and it was really cool."
Right.
But now it's like, "Hey, you don't know me, but you taught me how to roll,"
Mm.
or "You don't know me, but you changed the way I think about fear." And
Mm.
it's a to me it's a different kind of inspiration for me. It's that
Yeah.
realization that what I'm doing is really meaningful to other people,
Yeah.
and it that inspires me to give back even more. And it's not for the recognition, but just for the fact that it's that meaningful to people everywhere I go in the world. Like even down in Chile, somebody came up and they're like, "Oh, you know, you taught me how to roll. You taught me how to paddle a kayak." And I was like, oh my gosh, well, it's great to meet you.
That's
But
awesome.
it's just different. It's a different, but that's what it's turned into. And so clean line kayaking, the goal behind that is to share as much as I can with people. And I
Hmm.
try to keep it as free as I possibly can. I try to keep the instruction online, as free and open and attainable as I can. But then I charge for things like video review and online instruction, which
Sure.
is incredibly effective. It's surprisingly effective,
Mm.
and in person instruction. But I typically do that in person instruction through these signature programs.
Sure.
And it's really done a lot for that like life balance where I can be at home with my
Yeah.
wife sometimes and really like be present. And
Yeah.
then, I did spend, months in Chile instructing every single day, but then I come back and then, we'll go on a trip together or something. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So it's a different kind of pro kayaking. I don't know, like it pays just as
Right.
much, if not more,
Sure. Yeah.
but it,
Yeah. I'm sure it pays more.
yeah, it
Chasing the
does. It
sponsorship dollars in the
does.
2000s. That was quote unquote pro
Yeah. I
kayaking,
think
like gas card
yeah,
and
man,
entry fees.
I missed the mailbox money of those days, man. Those cabin media incentive contracts were gold.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
yeah, that's where it was at back then. We had a great deal going where my girlfriend back then would take photos and make sure all the logos showed up on my kayak. I was really stickered up, but it was on purpose
Yeah. Mhm.
because when she sold those photos to the magazines, they would pay us, hundreds of dollars to use the photo. But then
Sure.
every sponsor that was on there that showed up as a logo would pay me from the media incentive contract for the circulation of that magazine. So
Yeah.
then it would add up to where I would end up getting thousands for every photo, and it was just mail price
Sure.
money. It was
That's
just like
great.
showing up. Yeah, it
I
worked out. It's different now. You can't do that anymore. Everybody wants it free.
Right. I still have my old helmet from, the early 2000s competing, and I had my name on it, and I was on the cover of
Yeah,
American Whitewater, and I'm in this huge hole, and all you can see is my boat and the back of my helmet, and you can see my name. Just, like you could not see my face, but you could see
yeah.
my name. And I busted out the helmet to wear this summer, and this little kid on the cover is like, "Why do you have your name on your helmet?" You don't know, man. Like that name on the back of my helmet got me some mailbox money being on the cover of American Whitewater.
And sometimes it's just good branding, right? Like sometimes you just
Exactly.
need like all the freestylers have their name on their helmet. Like it's just
That's
part of it.
exactly right. That's what we all did. I don't know if they still do, but that's what we did back in the day.
Yeah, I think most still do. I think a lot of them
Okay.
do. It kind of saves you from that awkward moment in the eddy too, where they're like, "Hey, you're that guy. What's your name?"
Exactly. You actually, way before we met, you inspired me with your custom painted rocker. I got a new rocker for
Yeah,
Christmas, and it was just a plain yellow one. And my wife's an art teacher. I was like, can we do something here? So that was like our little. We had some snow days where we were stuck inside, and so that was our project. So I'm ready
that's
to
awesome.
bust out the new B Flow Sessions branded rocker this spring.
I went the route that a lot of people went, and I was like gonna have one painted, and I had one painted, and it was great. He did a great job, but it just took a long time. And I just was like, you know what? I'm gonna go grab the paint and just do it myself, and I'll get it the way I want to do it. And I made mistakes, man. I had to learn. That
Yeah,
has to happen,
we exactly.
you know.
Let's move into flow advice. And I want you to think about two paddlers here. One, a beginner paddler, and one, an older paddler who's getting back into the sport of maybe, various levels. What advice would you give those two groups of people?
I think I think on both groups of people, so an older paddler getting back into it versus a newer paddler. I think a newer paddler, the biggest thing to do is to really focus on what you want to get out of the sport and to slow down long enough to really like work toward it the right way. I think a lot of times people rush that learning curve so much, right? They think, oh, well, what I want to get out of the sport is to run a waterfall. And you can kind of go for the thrill ride on a waterfall safely sometimes, right? Like there's some
Hmm.
waterfalls out there that, you could just stick your mom in a kayak and send her off and she'll be all right.
Right.
But that's not usually the case. And
Sure.
I think the reality is that as a beginner, you have to be really careful about taking advice from everybody, from every
Hmm.
direction, all of the time. And I think it's important to really think about what you want to get out of the sport and really focus on dialing in your technique and making
Hmm.
sure that you keep yourself injury free so that you can keep enjoying the sport for a long
Right.
time. I see a lot of beginners kind of like skimping on a lot of forward stroke technique or
Yeah.
resting technique and things like that. They end up hurt almost all the time, right?
Yes.
Flopping over on their high braces with their arms extended and getting out of that
Hmm.
box, and the wear and tear that a lot of these beginners are going through is it's kind of ridiculous because it's avoidable.
The thing that I'm
But yeah,
noticing with
no,
getting
my
back in,
advice is usually
I'm
what's
sorry, the
that?
thing I'm noticing with getting back into the sport with the bow rocker now is I see it creating a lot of bad habits in beginners because they don't have to be super up on their bow. They can just lay back on that stern and that bow rocker is going to carry them over stuff.
It's going to go over every time. And the real technique is you're using your core and you're lifting your knees while you're taking those strokes so that you're lifting your bow
Exactly.
actively, right? And you learn that when you paddle like a short playboat,
Hmm.
downstream. When you're downstream kayaking in a playboat, you really learn to lift your bow on top of things. And you learn to like lift your bow and set it up on top of a hole and then go over. And people are skipping that step with these new
Yeah.
boats. they're great. They're
Exactly.
really fun, and the things that you can do in these boats are incredible. But
Hmm.
you're right. But yeah, I typically tailor that advice to everybody individually, depending on what they need. But I
Sure.
think as far as general advice goes for beginners, it's like think about your why and don't skimp on
Hmm.
technique.
Love
Um,
it.
you don't have to want to be the best kayaker in the world to learn how to kayak right properly and like safely. It just is going to keep you kayaking for a long time.
Yeah.
For somebody older getting back into the sport, I think about the same things, right? I think somebody who's getting back into the sport knows why they like it already. They know why they want
Hmm.
to do it again. They're
Yeah.
getting back into it usually because they miss it and they want it, and they so that's not usually something they need to think about. I think the big challenge for somebody getting back at the sport is really just understanding that some of those techniques and changes, those habits have changed,
Mm.
right? Like they might have habits from when they kayaked before, but the techniques have evolved over the years and they continue to evolve. And so there's, to be open to that, be open to learning like really good techniques so that you're modern technique in modern gears so that you can stay safe, do it for a long time. Because when you're older, somebody was giving me they were, who, I don't remember. It was at Golly Fest. That's where it was. And we were having this conversation, and he was like, I love teaching kids, but I don't like teaching adults because they're scared to try everything. I don't know what it is about getting older that makes people scared to try stuff. And I looked at him and
I
I was
do.
like, well, I said, for me, it hurts.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, if I try something, I might be out of commission for a month. And it
Yeah, I
doesn't
got
have to
bills to
be
pay
something
if I.
hard. Like,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like the consequences are higher. We're not made of rubber anymore. So yeah, I miss
right.
being a kid where I could just try stuff over and over and then like not feel it the next day.
Hmm.
But, like I was working on my kick flips. I was like, hey, I haven't, my back is a little tight, my hips are tight, my kick flips are not great right now. I'm gonna go work on my kick flips. So I did the kick flip conveyor on the Ottawa River at Garburator. It was just over and
Hmm.
over and over. I did about 100 kick flips that day, and on repeat, no stop, never getting out of the boat. But I swear I gave myself like tendonitis or something in my foot
Sure. Yeah.
from
I'm pushing.
kicking the
Yeah.
boat over and over and
Yeah.
over again. There was this random little spot in my foot, and I was like, huh, what is this? I've never even noticed that before because I've only never done, one or two and,
Right.
or even two or three and do like 100 in a day. It was like, oh, well, I guess that repetition's not good.
Hmm.
But I don't know.
So
So like older kayakers getting back into the sport, it's like similar advice, but tailored a little differently. It's like, you have to be willing to relearn some things and revisit some things because the way you learned it the first time might not be as good as we thought it was at the time. Um, but ultimately, we're all in it for fun, right?
that's
So
exactly right.
to get as much as you can. Yeah.
And now let's take the advice to the next level. So this is the Pucon Kayak Retreat uh, Flow Hot Tip by a pro. So give us your flow hot tip for running waterfalls.
I think this is appropriate because I got to teach one of the sickest waterfall clinics that I've ever heard of when I was with Pucon Kayak Retreat this past year in Chile. And we set it up. We took the group to Salto Blanco, which is this perfect 35 footer, and we had a waterfall clinic on the lip. We talked about everything from scouting waterfalls to running waterfalls. And then we worked our way up to an optional 50 footer.
Mm.
So we went over to Tomatita, and these guys did Tomatita laps after the Blanco part of the clinic. And then they had the option to run Demsheds, which is a 60 footer. So we scouted that together. So there was like this. And you talk about a waterfall progression. Like I've never seen a progression that's like that, or a clinic where like people pay and they get to like actually consider those big waterfalls.
Right.
But the my best advice for running a that's a tough one. The My best advice for choosing for decision making around waterfalls is to take it slow.
Mm.
You know, ease up. There's a lot of forgiveness in waterfalls. There's a lot more forgiveness than people think about. Even on the bigger waterfalls, something about the bigger waterfalls are almost softer a lot of
Mm.
times. The I think the surface tension gets broken up in a different way, and they feel almost softer as long as you're vertical, as long as you're in the
Right.
position you need to be.
Right.
The moment you're out, or the moment you're tucked toward the green, or the moment you're a little bit off of that boil, it's a hard hit. And
Hmm.
so, like, bigger waterfalls are great until they aren't. The smaller waterfalls hit harder. There's something about
Sure.
them that, like, they'll like knock the breath out of you. They hit harder, and so I don't know. There's a lot of forgiveness. That advice would probably be to take it slow, take it easy, and really think about, you know, inching your way up on the waterfall game, but also
Hmm.
understanding that, on the fear side, that there's something that's a little bit better. They get a little bit almost friendlier in some ways as you get taller, but they
Mm.
get harder in other ways because once you hit 30 feet, you start getting these mid-air corrections that have to happen.
Right.
So if you did something kind of funny, you might start to cork, or you might start to kind of rotate, or you might start to,
Hmm. Pitch pole.
shift off of that axis. Yeah,
Hmm.
pitch or whatever. And so you've got to learn how to correct those, right? Like, and it's
Hmm.
the opposite of what a lot of people think. Sometimes if you start to kind of cork in a way, you might actually have to just change your setup gently, and that'll kind of straighten you back up. Modern technique is all about keeping a paddle in the water so you have water built up around the blade on both sides. And so
Mm.
you're leaving yourself options. The the bottom line though is like slowing down and really thinking about inching your way up and knowing that you're going to have to like dial in a little bit more of that free fall with every step.
Hmm.
So I guess take it slow is like mentally the advice I give people is like take it slow.
I
As
love
far
it.
as waterfall technique goes,
Hmm.
goodness, I think the most useful advice is less is more.
Okay.
Right? It's like waterfalls are about situational awareness, moment to moment. Like you're really having to kind of monitor everything that's happening all at once on you know, a very different axis than you're normally used to.
Right.
And then you have to respond appropriately, but minimally.
Mm.
And so it's all about that situational awareness coupled with restraint. And so really like slowing yourself down is my best advice really for both. But in terms of technique, less is more, right? Like small
Yeah.
movements, small corrections, micro movements. The, I watched a guy during the clinic. He nailed the first 30 feet. And then he did something kind of aggressive with his tuck and just totally flattened out on the bottom
Ooh.
of the 50 footer. Yeah. His back was fine. It was, soft enough to where it was, Tomatita's pretty soft. People move it for fun, but like it's still tall. And then,
Sure.
his face, of course, smacked the front of his boat.
Right.
He was really thrilled about running it. He was really thrilled about his line, but I watched him boof in the last moment. And if you watch on video, it's the last 15 feet maybe. He's like this and then like this.
Mm.
And so I think a lot of people just don't realize so much can change so quickly.
Right.
So back to my waterfall advice, slowing down mentally, kind of inching your way up, getting used to that. Um, Another thing is Nick Troutman actually kind of talked to me about it one time, and he was absolutely right. Um, he was like, people tend to kind of pull away when they look into like, because when you run a waterfall, you want to go into the hole at the bottom, and there's like there's the waterfall comes down, and there's the boil, but in between you have this pit, and the pit looks kind of scary because it looks like it's just like a catcher's mitt, and it looks deep, and it can be really deep,
Yeah.
and it's just going to swallow you, and it looks really scary, and you feel like you're kind of pitching almost. And the tendency is to kind of pull back from that, but you have to actually just trust it and keep looking into it. You have to like really fly your way into that little catcher's mitt.
Mm,
And so I don't know. That's another random piece of advice, but
I
it's
like
like
it.
slow down.
Yeah. Let's move on to the rapids now. So this is our Mount Rushmore segment. This is where I'm gonna throw some topics at you, and you got to give me your Mount Rushmore. So like your top 3 to 5 favorite things from these categories.
All right, let's go.
All right, your kayak designs of all time.
My kayak designs of all time. Oh
Yeah, your
goodness.
favorite kayak, your favorite boats.
Clutch is up there. Like the clutch is definitely up there. Rockstar 5 is probably up there. My second favorite playboat to the Rockstar 5 is the Ballistic Rad.
Okay.
Um, the Ballistic Rad 180 because it had those double drop chines too, and it was like the fit was really good. Um, and then I don't know. The Riot Glide holds a special place in my heart, even though it's hard to call it a favorite design. There was when it came out, I was really stoked on it. There was a kid. It was something that like I learned how to blunt in that boat,
Yeah,
but I don't know and new Antics 3 is actually like one of them too. I need to spend more time in mine
looks
um,
cool.
because it has those double drop chines, but it's like half slicey and super playful and fun.
Yeah, rivers of all time.
I could keep going on designs, man. Yeah, Rivers of
No,
All Time. I'll go with
you only
Fui for
get three to
sure.
five. Fui, okay. Anything else to put on
Okay,
there?
Fui for sure. Ottawa for sure. Um, Zambezi. Yeah,
Okay.
Fui, Ottawa, Zambezi are probably my top three.
Countries to paddle in.
Wow, Chile for sure. Canada for sure. And I've got to say, man, the home country USA has got some really, really great whitewater.
Pretty diverse,
I feel like
yeah.
it's really easy to kind of like off at home, but man, from California to the East Coast to the North, we've got some goods here.
We do, for sure.
US has to make the list.
All right, a river that you've never done that you want to do.
Oh, all right. So this is a sore spot for me. I went all the way down to the Rio Baker or Baker
Mm,
if you pronounce it
the
the way you're
Bakker.
supposed
Yeah,
to. And
exactly.
everybody everybody had to kind of bail at the last minute and couldn't make it down there. And I was going to meet, some guys and their truck broke down and then the classic Chilean story. And then I was going to meet some other guys and they couldn't make it. And then some guys' friends were going to try and then they couldn't make it. And I almost soloed it. I almost was just
Mm,
like, I'm getting in my boat and paddling this thing alone. And had I actually been alone, I would have. But my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, couldn't drive a manual, didn't speak much Spanish, and
mm,
we were, the Bakker is you're like a week from help. Like
right.
you fly into Chile and then you drive for a week, and it's like
Yep.
ferries and really it's like a week south of Fuda sometimes with all the rock
Yeah.
slides. So I don't know. I couldn't imagine anything happening to me and leaving her in that kind of a position. So I didn't. And so I stared at it. I hiked into every single rapid and looked at it for a week, waiting on people to join me, wanting it. The ultimate blue balls experience. So I've got some unfinished business there.
All right.
That's gonna have to happen. Yeah.
I love it.
That might cover it for
Uh,
that one. Yeah. There's
I think
always
that's a
more.
good one. All right, this one's controversial, but I ask everybody, kayakers of all time.
Oh man, that's like all right. So one person that is obvious, right? Like Dane Jackson, I think is the goat,
You're
and
right.
I love Dane. I've known him forever, and nobody questions that. And I think it's to his, I think he doesn't get enough credit because of that. I think people look at
Sure.
what he does and they're like, that's Dane doing Dane things. He works so hard for it too. Like he's like works for it. You know, I really want to give him props. Um, On the expedition side, people don't really talk about Ben Stooksbury, but
Mm.
that guy is a glutton for punishment. And,
Yeah.
in my short moment getting to paddle with him on expeditions, like I really get to see how he thinks about rivers and how he thinks about, what he wants to paddle and take on. And I think in terms of an adventure, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention him as an expedition kayaker because it's just,
Sure.
you know, he's an
Yeah.
explorer for sure. Um,
Absolutely.
I feel like Audie is probably the best
Mm.
female freestyler of all time.
I think so too. Yeah.
You know, I think I think without question. I mean, she's actually the only one that could score with the boys. I think like she's
Right.
she's like
Yeah.
you know she'd make top three. I think no matter where she is.
Right.
And so I think
Yes,
she deserves some mad props for that. I think she's
for
no
sure.
question. But
All right.
I
So
could go
this is
into
the
so many,
final.
man. There's so many.
Oh yeah, you could go on all. Yeah, you get into slalom and and then the classic river runners from the 60s and 70s. I mean, the pioneers, right? You could go on all day.
Exactly.
All right. So final flow. This is the last time you're ever in a kayak. Last time you ever put the spray skirt on. The river gods have granted you knowledge of this, but they're going to let you pick where you're at and what boat you're in and the crew you're with.
Ooh, that's a really tough one. It's a really tough one, and it's probably gonna be if I were alone, then it would be the Ottawa River and Antics.
Okay.
No question. High water, antics, playful, enjoy it all day. But I would take kind of my home paddling crew in a heartbeat and lap the Fui. If I could pick
Hmm.
anything, it would be the Fui, and
I thought
it
you were
would
going
be
to say
like
that.
Fui laps all the way around. Yeah, probably Toto Fui. If there's like
Okay.
a good Toto Fui day, like get that perfect in between level where you can route all the way through.
Yeah.
That would be the river for sure.
Okay. Any particular
The
boat?
boat for that probably might be Antics 3 because I think the Antics 3
Okay.
could route through most of that and play.
Okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
I
All
think
right.
I think that actually might really be the dream.
I love it.
Um, yeah,
That's great.
good
Well,
times.
Boyd, thank you so much for coming on Beeflo Sessions. This has been just phenomenal to hear your insights, your story. What an incredible journey that your life has been and continues to be.
Man, I appreciate you having me on. I'm glad we finally got to work it out.
Yeah, for sure.
It's
And
been months in the
well,
making, at least. So I'm
yeah,
really
we got to.
grateful you had me on.
It was a pleasure to have you. We got to connect on the water soon this spring.
No doubt, man. Yeah,
All right. Thanks
hopefully get some
again.
more water soon.
Yeah. Hopefully it gets warmer. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of B Flow Sessions, where we explore how paddlers find their flow on the water and in life. If you enjoyed this episode, please follow the show, leave a rating, or share it with a friend. It truly helps us grow the community. And a huge thank you to Pucon Kayak Retreat for sponsoring today's episode. If you're ready for a world-class Chilean whitewater adventure, email me at bflowkayak@gmail.com and I'll help you get dialed in. Until next time, keep finding your flow.